everyone, hope you're well. In tonight's interview, I am chatting to Orenjikun, who is a background artist at Flying Bark Productions, though you probably best know him from his educational reels. His way of breaking down art fundamentals is extremely easy and entertaining to watch, and it was a blast chatting to a fellow Australian artist. We discussed topics from his art journey, what it was like creating educational content, and, of course, his pet ducks. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did making it. Thank you for joining me, first of all. Very excited to have you on the show. I like the background, first of all. There's a
Oh, thank you.
lot of really awesome art inspiration books that I see that I gravitate to as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wondering, was that always the setup? Was that always
No, this is a new setup. I used to stream out of my bedroom. Um, and so I stream, by the way, like I stream on Twitch. So um like my workspace used to be in my bedroom in my parents' house, and then I moved out with my partner and I was still streaming from the bedroom. And then
Mm,
just recently we set up like an office space here. Like my partner is opposite from me here.
mm,
She has her own setup. And yeah, I bought this like IKEA shelf secondhand. Put it up maybe only around 6 months ago, I think.
oh wow.
And just yeah, start filling it up. But when you can put just one book in each box, it fills up pretty quick.
Yeah.
When you can have it
That's
face
true.
forward, looks nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely very aesthetic. Are there any plans to change that up a little bit more? It's looking pretty complete. I mean,
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think it'll just change as I buy more stuff.
mm,
As I add more stuff to the collection, I might see if I want to swap anything out.
mm. Is there anything that will stay, that will never go?
They'll never go.
Yeah.
I reckon this one's never gonna go, the slam dunk one. I wouldn't say slam dunk is really an influence on me and my art like that, like overtly, but it was a huge inspiration for me growing up when I was a teenager. So that's like I love that forever. So
Mm. I think on the topic of inspiration as well, there's a lot of different reasons to get inspired, which I think is very interesting because sometimes even just bringing in an interest or, sort of planting a seed in your mind to, want to research a topic or get more into a hobby or something like that in and of itself. And then as you get more skilled, you go back and look at the original and you're like, oh, I understand like a lot more techniques and things that you maybe didn't beforehand.
yeah, I think so. I grew up being really inspired by anime and manga, and growing up, like for the longest time, my goal was to like make a manga. And back then, it was so tricky. Like I would spend like multiple days on a single page, and it would take me like a month to make like a one shot story that was like maybe 15 pages long. And it was such a struggle back then. Um, and I haven't tried it again since then. Like the last kind of thing I made might have been around like 7, 8, 9 years ago. But now that I've gotten a lot better at like just art in general and like my fundamentals, like perspective and composition, and having knowledge about like staging and framing and stuff, I'd like to have a go again and just see, like, hopefully, how much easier it is now.
Mm. I think when you internalize things a lot more as well, it becomes very subconscious, which is when you kind of know that it's sunk in a
Mm.
little bit because it's always the thing too of like as obviously you're learning the fundamentals, every little tiny bit and piece you have to really kind of scrutinize, make sure you're doing correctly, like perspective, for instance. But after a while, you kind of gain this intuitive nature of it, and then that's when you can really focus on the actual art and story.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? It's like being able to like flow through like the process rather than like stop start, like check this reference, check that reference, understand if you're actually using the right technique. I think about this when doing art in general, where it's like there's so many different things to focus on, like so many different things like composition, values, color, um, but slowly over time, like some of these things you can autopilot. And then as you start to autopilot more things, you can start to focus on more advanced things.
Mm,
And then more and more things get autopiloted. And then you just kind of keep grabbing new things to focus on. And that's
mm,
how
mhm.
I think you can improve as an artist.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. Out of all the fundamentals, which one was the most difficult to grasp for you?
Um, I wouldn't even say I've fully grasped it at this point, but definitely composition. Because I think composition is like a super important thing, but you also need to know everything to be able to compose something, right? You need to have a good knowledge of perspective, of lighting and color, of like shape language and all that kind of stuff. And like even though it is the first thing that people see as composition, it's almost like the last thing that you get to when
Mm.
you're learning art because everything else comes before it, you know?
Yeah, it's such a true thing, and specifically with composition as well, you really get more of a sense of like a personal identity or style, like with composition, because it there's so many different ways to frame, like like a badass character standing on top of a mountain, but there's so many different ways of conveying that, and all these like tiny different elements that make up the painting as well says a lot about the individual artist, and there's no like right or wrong, which is there's
Yeah.
obviously like tips and stuff that can help you, but in terms of how you want to do it, it's like kind of really up to you. You can
Yeah.
kind of do anything. So yeah. Okay. So I have a question about your art journey. Just a very standard, cut and dry sort of. How did you get into it? What was the interest? How did that sort of develop, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I've been doing art for as long as I can remember. I think this is a thing that a lot of people will say. It's like everyone starts doing art, but not many people continue into like adulthood. So I started doing art when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it a lot. My brother did drawing classes, and he's a bit older than me, so he was always like doing different extracurriculars, and I would kind of join him later as I grew older. And so I started doing drawing classes as well when I was like maybe 5. They're just like extracurricular thing for kids to do, but it was something that I did every week. So it just kind of helped, foster a love for like drawing. And I basically kept doing that. I think there was a few years that were like kind of off, but it was always like an extracurricular thing that I did like 2 hours a week. And then of course I also drew in my own time. And then growing up, I was introduced to anime and manga, and yeah, I just like fell in love with it, and I was obsessed with it. Every like spare minute I had, I would want to be drawing something, and so I did that, kind of throughout primary school to high school, and then I went to university, which happened to be for architecture, because that was something that I thought would suit me. Like I had no idea. I was like, oh, I'm kind of good at
Mm.
math. I'm good at art. Like maybe architecture's for me. So yeah, I did that. I completed the 3 years bachelor degree, and the way it works here in Australia is that you normally have to do another 2 years masters. And so I had enrolled into masters, but also I kind of wanted to take a break and see what else was out there. So after my bachelor's degree, I took a year off, and that year also happened to be 2020, COVID. And so I ended up being stuck at home. I spent like the first couple months of that year trying out different things. Like I made some zines. I went to a zine fair. I made a photography zine as well. I was like doing some graphic designy kind of things. I even applied to a graphic design job and got an interview, and that was like right when like COVID picked up, and I think they ghosted me because of like COVID stuff. They never actually, because I had the interview set up, and they just never got back to me. so
Uh,
so that happened, and
yep.
then I'm from Melbourne, and Melbourne locked down, and during that period, I was just like getting back into drawing again. I was like drawing fan art again, like posting on the internet, and just like kind of having fun with that. And then about maybe like 3 or 4 months into that year, I came across an artist, Citrus Lucy. I think you might know her.
Mm,
Um, I saw in her bio it said background layout at Flying Buck, and I was like, "What is that?" I
mm,
googled it, and then I found out about like the animation industry and like the pipeline. It's like, oh, background layout is a part of the pipeline where you draw the backgrounds before they go to the background painter. It's like, oh, that's so interesting. And Lucy as well happened to be a former architect. I don't know if she was like a architect, but actually at least she worked in an office. And I was like, wow, you can do that? That's so cool. So then I was like, oh, why don't I try it out? I'm stuck at home anyway. I got nothing to do. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to be a background artist. And so I spent that year kind of like watching YouTube, looking at other like cool artists and their portfolios and stuff, and building a portfolio. And then in December, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to start applying. Applied to a few different places. I actually my first interview was at, I think it's called Mighty Kingdom.
Oh yeah,
It's
yep,
the game studio.
yep.
I actually got an interview with them, which is pretty cool. That was my first interview for a art related job. Didn't get
Mm.
that job, but just maybe a week or two after that, I got a call back from Flying Buck, and they asked me to do like some tests for them. So I did like I think at the time the role that I applied for was environment designer. So I did an environment design test, and then they're like, "Why don't you try this one instead?" And then they gave me a key color test, and I did that as well. I did that, and then I sent it to them, and they sent it back to me, and I'm like, "Okay, so here's like all the notes." They gave me some really good detailed feedback for everything, and they're like, "I don't think it's quite the role for you, but uh, don't worry, we have something for you." Background layout. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll take it." I was kind of scared after like I failed two tests, right? And it's like,
Mm.
oh, like okay, I'll take it. And so that was my first job, and I've basically been working mainly as a layout artist ever since then. Um, and if we want to get into like the other stuff I've been doing recently, I basically just started posting like content, if you want to call it, like educational content last year because I had for the first time like a little gap in my contracts of about 2 months, I think. And then I was just like, oh, I'm gonna try this for fun. And so I did like a video per day just to test it out, and it blew up way more than I ever expected it to. Um, and yeah, just over those past like 3 years since 2020, I've just been like doing my day job at an animation studio, and then just doing my own art in my free time, like streaming and uh, posting my art online and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been pretty full on over the last couple of years compared to what I was doing before. Like I had no idea I would be here in this position
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's always very fascinating to hear, like the journeys and stuff, because everyone has such a different path ahead of them.
Yeah,
And I think especially for a lot of younger students who are maybe graduating or thinking about even pursuing art in the first place, like hearing that there's a process to it essentially. It's never as
yeah,
cut and dry or as easy as it may seem to be. But if you want it bad enough and you're willing to put in the work, like it will happen.
definitely. One of the most inspiring things for me was actually like listening to other people's stories. So I would watch, I would listen to the like Art Cafe podcast. Um, I forgot who runs it, but he interviews heaps of different artists across
Is it
different.
Bobby Chew? Is it?
Bobby
Or
Chew has one as well. I also listen to Bobby Chew. I think Art
right.
Cafe was Alexander Mandrajev or someone like that.
Oh, yep,
I
yep.
forgot. Um, and also like I think it's called Cartoon Block,
Mm,
Creative Block. I forgot what it's called. Podcasts, and you just listen to people talk about their journeys, and it's so interesting because in like this kind of field of entertainment art, everyone does something different. Like there's no set linear path. Like you don't have to go to school. You don't have to have any certain kind of experience. Like I remember that I learned that Benju Ono, who was like a director on Moon Girl, he has a master's in mathematics or something like that, or physics,
oh,
something
wow.
random like that, before he even attempted to enter animation. It's like it's so
Mm,
crazy, you
mm.
know?
Yeah, definitely. It's the best way that I think about it is that it's almost like being an actor, right? Where there's a lot of different roles out there. Not all of them are necessarily tailored for you, but there is one that is there for you, right? And you just have to know yourself, know your style, all of those different questions, and kind of just keep going with it. Any action is better than inaction, I think. So
Mhm.
with your socials, with Orenjikun, so I gotta know, like, what's it like living with a duck? What's that like?
Believe it or not, we actually have 6 ducks.
6 ducks.
Yeah,
Okay.
they've accumulated over time. Like,
Okay,
we
okay.
had 2 originally, and then we got a couple more, and then we hatched some eggs.
Yeah, wow.
Now we've ended up with 6. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, they just kind of hang out in the backyard. You go outside and like have a look at them. They're just like
Mm.
chilling. They can get kind of noisy, and you have to go and feed them and stuff like that. And there's a lot of kind of cleaning to do. Um, but like, sounds kind of stupid, but like at this point, like you could probably say that the ducks are like my muse. It's like people have their muse, right? It's like
Yeah,
that
definitely.
normally some kind of like pretty lady. But like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I draw ducks so much as a subject matter. It's almost like they're my muse.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but
Honestly, I
yeah,
mean, it looks fantastic anyway. Like, there's so much innocence. There's so much like, that you can capture in a background painting, and then just put a bunch of ducks, and it already tells such an
they
interesting
really are.
story.
Like when I watch my ducks, you just know they don't have a single care in the world. Well, they
Mm.
just eat, sleep, play all day. It's very kind of like healing to watch.
Mm.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. So is there a limit of ducks in the Orenji household that you'll
I
have
reckon
to put a cap on eventually? Or
I reckon 6 is enough at
yeah,
this
yeah.
point. We have like hatched a few eggs, like maybe around this time last year. At that point, we already had 6, and we were just like selling the ducklings.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
think we could handle more.
Mm-hmm. What's something interesting about the behavior of a duck that, say, like, normal people wouldn't know unless they
Oh,
had them?
there's a lot of weird things that they do.
Okay.
This one's maybe not the weirdest thing, but they sleep on one leg. You've probably
Oh,
seen
okay. Yeah.
birds do that, but it's very kind of bizarre when you see it. They're just like got their eyes closed and they're on one leg and they're sleeping.
Yeah.
That's if like maybe the floor isn't as comfortable. They do sit down if it's like comfy, and also they'll tuck their like beak into their wings. Like you know, birds have very flexible necks, so they'll turn their neck 180 degrees, tuck their beak into their wings, and they'll just be like a little ball when they're sleeping.
Yeah.
Also, a funny thing that they do is when they swim, they'll like want to eat things like in the water, and the way that they do it is they go completely like head down, and their legs come up out of the water.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so they're
I'm
just, like,
sure you've seen
basically little.
photos of it before.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of funny to see. It's like if a human like decided to dive, and then their legs just came out of the water like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, sometimes at the local pool, I just see that, and I'm not gonna question it. I'm just gonna walk away. Yeah. What are their names?
So they have like Chinese names, 2 of them, Tizi and Douzai. And then there's Oko, which is okonomiyaki, call them Oko for short. And we
Nice.
also have one called Scissors. So interesting about Scissors is that, well, Scissors and also Bell, they were born with like a birth defect. So they have scissor beak, so their beaks aren't like
Mm,
aligned.
yep.
The first one we noticed was Scissors, and we just call him Scissors. Um, so Scissors Bell, and then there's also Peepo, and Peepo is named after the Twitch emote Peepo.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So now when you see the emote, you just immediately think,
yeah, yeah.
"Yeah, perfect. Awesome." So, yeah, going back to your art journey and things like that for a second, what do you think is something most people misunderstand about the art journey, if you will? Or, like, say, again, people sort of graduating, wanting to pursue it, even people on the path. What do you
I
think is
think
something that they misinterpret?
I think something that like I didn't understand and I wasn't aware of was that um, like nothing specifically can prepare you for what's out there. Like you can't just go to like school and like or like university and then learn everything that you need and come out and be ready for the industry. Like that's not the way it works. The way that it works is that you have to learn what it takes to be in the industry, and you can do that with or without schooling. Um, and also, I thought that like the really good artists out there that I looked up to, I thought they were just like machines. I thought that once you got to a certain point, you were just good at art, and whatever you crapped out onto a piece of paper was just gold. I thought that's how it
Mm,
worked. Like you just got good enough, and whatever you did was just beautiful.
mm.
And now that I'm here, I realize that's totally not the case, and everything is still very much hard work.
Mm,
Um, I like the floor gets higher, I guess. Like the worst thing I can do like is not that bad now. But in order to like get better, like it's a constant lifelong journey, and it never really ends. Um, and I think a lot of people, like beginners and younger people, they kind of think it ends at a certain point. They think I'm going to reach this point and then it ends. Like no stress, I'm going to have an art job and that's going to be it for the rest of my life. Well, not really. If you're serious about this, you're in for the long haul. You know.
mm. And everything that comes with it as well. Like, I think resilience is such a huge aspect of life in general, and that can definitely be applied to art. Because it's, I was talking to a friend today about this funny meme I saw, and we were just kind of chatting about like we are talking about JC Leyendecker and then what it's like to draw like the masters, right? And the meme was it goes back in time. There's like a Disney artist, and he's like, to draw like the masters, and then it goes back in time, and it's a Renaissance guy. He's like, to draw like the masters, and it keeps going all the way to a caveman that's like painted something on a wall, and he's like, I'm the best. Yeah, but it's so true. Like there's so much expectation, and I think for me speaking, like put a lot of pressure on ourselves as well to kind of have everything figured out when that's not necessarily how things work or how things end up. And I think mainly just sort of as you get older, as you mentioned, that skill does get higher, but more importantly, your expectations with yourself and being able to manage that is a lot more in tune than perhaps before, when everything just feels like a constant struggle. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
definitely.
To go off of that, people that are creating art goals for themselves, um, do you have any advice for creating or having art goals that are either are better to have or a little bit more healthy to have, perhaps more specific? And what do you think are some art goals that can lead to stress and anxiety and things like that?
This is kind of tricky for me to answer because I think like my like threshold for like pain is a lot higher. Not like physical pain, but just like pain of putting yourself through like a challenge. Um, so for me, I set like reasonably like high expectations for myself, and that pushes me to like go beyond what I currently can, and so that I keep growing. But I don't know if it's like the healthiest thing for everyone to do, but I guess you have to kind of reasonably manage your own kind of energy levels, but also put yourself right at that point where you can be progressing. I've heard of this term called eustress. It's like stress, but eustress, and eustress is like the perfect amount of like stick that pushes you, and it's at a point where it's like it's not too daunting or like unachievable. Like, because if something is too daunting and unachievable, you lose motivation, but it's also not too easy because if something is too easy, you also lose motivation.
Yeah.
It's something right at that point that's like the perfect like level of stress that allows you to go to the next level.
Mm,
Um, but that's very difficult to say what that is because it differs from person to person. But that's something to think about if you're setting a goal for yourself.
mm.
Um, yeah.
Definitely. And, to mirror that as well, I think having it doesn't have to, you don't have to have everything figured out, but specific enough goals where it's measurable, it's actionable, things of that nature where you can actually look back on and see if what you're achieving is doable. Because sometimes, like for me, I'll set goals that are like way too high and then sort of try and attempt it and then realize that it's not necessarily that I couldn't do it, but it was the goal itself or my expectation with the goal, if that makes sense.
Well,
Um,
yeah, there's different types of goals, you know. There's like long-term goals and there's like more short-term kind of goals. It's like today I'm going to wake up at a certain time. Like that can be a goal and that can help you with your art journey. But it's a lot different from being like, I'm going to become an art director, you know? Like
Yeah, yeah.
I personally want to be an art director, but
Hmm.
it's not something that I'm like actively pursuing in a sense. It's not like I wake up
Mm.
every day and like I'm going to be an art director, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like, I'll have this many followers by this date. Like it's you
Yeah.
can't control that stuff. You just have to kind
Oh,
of
that's an important point. There are things that you can control and things that you can't control. And I think a lot of people get worried about things that they can't control. They get
yeah,
worried about how people perceive them and how people perceive their art and like, numbers and stuff like that. That isn't something you can control. You can't control like how someone receives your art. If your art, is not received well, or back to the drawing board. But people kind of like take that as a reflection on like their worth as an artist, whereas it's not really about that. Like they don't, as harsh as this may sound, like people don't care who you are. Like they're not like, if they ignore your art, it's not because they don't like you as a person. It's just like your art maybe wasn't compelling in some kind of way.
mm,
um
yeah. Or
and,
yeah,
and some
that's
people, oh, I was gonna
no,
say
sorry.
some people get upset, like, oh, my post flopped or whatever. It's like, well,
Yeah,
some posts did well in the past. Like, go look at those ones and figure out
yeah,
why.
yep,
You did something good. You can do it. You just have to
yeah.
figure out what it is.
Exactly, exactly. And I think it's for me, it's helpful to know as well. Like, something you may have seen on my channel is I'm very nerdy about like behind the scenes productions of how things were made and all that, the meat and the juice of all that stuff. The reason why is because, obviously there was a production, there was a process to things involved. And even the most fascinating for me is stuff that on paper should have succeeded and done really well for whatever reason, whether they got like a cutting new technology or there was a lot of stuff in the budget or the market was right at the time and it didn't. And trying to figure out why, because even on the biggest scale, meaning like multi-million dollar companies, and especially like in the animation studios and industry and all that kind of stuff, there's like it's the world's chaotic. There's still so many things happening, and I think as long as you sort of have a growth and learning mindset from it rather than like always end outcome, I think that'll help to propel you further along than someone who kind of just loses the motivation because of the other reasons.
Yeah, I agree. Like that term growth mindset, right? It's like such a like Sigma male grindset thing, but it, it's so true. It's like something is only marked as a failure if you give up. You
If
know,
you, yeah, yeah, exactly.
like when you decide to stop, like that's when it's a failure. But if you move past it and then you succeed as a later point, it's just a setback. It's something that you overcame, and it's actually something that people admire. Like when you can push past those kind of things.
Definitely, definitely. Because yeah, like setbacks are it's just part of life. It's going to happen, and then whether or not you choose, it's cheesy, right? But it's true because sometimes I think we also, and by sometimes I mean me, we internalize this kind of advice and we hear it, but kind of forget that you actually kind of have to step up when it does happen. Or it's
Yeah.
useful to remember this is what resilience looks like. This is what having a growth mindset actually looks like in practice, when it's actually happening to you or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
everyone is born with like a different set of challenges in different circumstances. There are people who are born with more than you. There are people who are born with less than you. It doesn't really matter. You just do what you can do, and
yeah.
based on your circumstances, um, you might have to work harder than someone else. But there's no reason why you can't work harder than them, and push through that.
Mm. Who are some artists that you really admire that kind of maybe embody these values? Is there anybody coming to mind?
Mm, hard to say. These days, I just kind of look at people's art and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I don't, I don't have like an encyclopedic brain of like what people's careers are like, but I'm sure there's plenty.
Mm.
Um,
What kind of art speaks to you in that regard then?
mm, and these are hard questions you're throwing me, man.
Sorry.
They're so like deep, and it's like I don't, to be honest, like I don't think about art that deeply, that regularly. Like for me, a lot of art is like a technicality kind of thing. Um, and like I do like kind of feel like emotions when looking at art, and I think that's important. But I don't necessarily like look too deep into those kind of things. I guess like the closest thing I can think of is like manga, since I grew up reading so much of it. Um, in terms of kind of like overcoming things, is what's really cool is that in some manga you see the artist grow throughout the years, and you can literally compare like their first chapter and the last chapter. And I think I'll go back to Slam Dunk by Takiko Inoue. It's ridiculous how much this guy improved over the span of 6 years. Like he went from being just really, honestly, at that time, wasn't even like up to standard. Like when he first was like serializing Slam Dunk, it was, it was, his art style was kind uh, of that time, but it was still kind of like very average. And he ended up after 6 years being like literally one of the greatest artists of all time. Like no one can like match what he does. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I love to see. I guess in that regard, I do love to see like where an artist came from, especially in this day and age where we have like the internet and lots of people are posting their art from a young age. You can see how they grew as an artist over the years. And you can
Yeah.
literally look at their art from when they were 15 years old, for example.
Yep. Yep.
And a lot of people are kind of embarrassed to show their art from that long ago. But I find it pretty inspiring because I can look
Mm.
at a piece of art and I can be like, oh, I'm at like the level of this artist from when they were like 16 years old in 2000 and something. And now, right now, is 6 years later. So maybe in 6 years, I'll be as good as they are now. You know,
Yeah. 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 I know
I
exactly
do
what
that all
you
the
mean.
time.
And it's like we all have those DeviantArt accounts we'd rather not share to
Yeah.
people.
To be
Yeah,
honest,
but
I leave mine up precisely because I have this like opinion that it's cool to see, uh, you know, the progression. So you can still find mine if you really want.
awesome, cool. I think it's also partly like to mirror what you were saying too on this digital age and stuff. It's definitely like a authenticity thing because it's easy to kind of look at everyone's successes and then think like that just happened and not look back at the individual steps and processes and all that kind of stuff that they had to go through. Like you were mentioning earlier, everyone has a different life path. So yeah, in terms of the technical side of art, is being a background artist yourself as well, and in a lot of environments, is there a particular type of time and place or mood or lighting that really speaks to you when you're out in the street? Do you kind of look for particular things for references, or is it just all easy come, easy go?
um, I don't know where my phone is. I should probably look at my phone and look at the photos I take. But um, I do take a lot of photos when I'm out and about, and it is typically I like to see like the quality of light. I like the shapes that it makes or the way that it reflects off something. Um, so definitely is majority about light. I know people like to notice things like textures or like notice how the vines in like the ground are growing and things like that. But I'm less so focused on like a subject and more so focused on like light in general.
Yeah, for sure. Especially walking around the streets of Melbourne as well. Like my phone did not stop. I was like, so many alleyways, so much interesting architecture as well. And then
Yeah.
specifically in like, urban environments, the way that buildings cast shadows onto other buildings.
Yeah,
And then you can kind of see
and
this
like
like slice.
it's really interesting when like the sun reflects off of a building and it's pointing light back.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but like it's almost like
Yeah.
there's a second sun. It's like,
Yes.
where's this light coming from? You're like looking around, it's so bright around here. Like, what is this?
Mm,
Yeah,
mm. Well, it's cool, particularly considering the types of materials that are involved, but in big office buildings as well. When you get that like late afternoon lighting, and it's the bounce light from something else coming back into the room, and then yeah, it's just a very warm, nostalgic kind of feeling. I don't know how to describe it, but
yeah,
yeah, very cool.
definitely.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit with art conventions, how did you get into cons and all that kind of stuff? And
So growing up, like I said, I was on DeviantArt, and that was like my first exposure to like what a convention was, because some of my favorite artists that I followed went to conventions. I was like, oh, what is this? And so I went to my first one probably when I was like 14 or something. And yeah, since then, I just like kind of fell in love with the idea of like selling my art at a convention. I always wanted to do it because that was honestly like my first exposure to like making money as an artist. Obviously, I knew that, I think back then, especially, like the big thing was like game concept art. Like I knew that this was a thing, but it just felt so unachievable. And so I thought, oh, if I want to be an artist and make a living, like I can be like these guys going to conventions. And so that was always something that was on my mind and that I really wanted to do. And I actually did my first one in my first year of university. And I think I started school 1 year early. So I was actually 17 at the time, turning 18 that year. And that's when I did my first convention. And it was cool, except back then I was like very socially awkward and I made no friends. And like, that's a big part about conventions, right? Now that I know, is like making friends. But back then I didn't know how to do that, didn't talk to anyone. I made $200 at my first convention. I was like, oh, this is all right. That's not bad. I did the convention again the next year, and then that next year I lost $200. So like I broke even after 2 years. And I was like, oh, this is kind of tough. Um, like losing money is like clearly a problem. Like maybe like I'm not good enough. So then that was during university as well. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on uni again. And then, like I said, after I finished uni, I went back into art again. And then that was like always like some kind of goal to get back into conventions again and do it differently this time and like do it right this time. And so, yeah, COVID happened, and then like the convention that I applied for like kept getting pushed out. But I think it ended up happening at the end of 2021, and I will call that my first convention because the first two were kind of like duds. They didn't really count.
Right.
um, but I had so much fun actually, and I really learnt about like what makes them so fun and why people do them. Um, I actually did it with a friend this time. Actually, there was a friend that I met at university, but I didn't actually know that he did art back then. I only found out after I left. But then I linked up with him. His name is Levinky. I don't know if you've met him before,
I don't think so.
but yeah, but I did it with him, and it was like super fun. And I met so many people. Like I finally had a group of like IRL art friends, which I never really had. And so I've been doing them pretty regularly since then until now. And also, it's like it's money, you know.
Yeah,
It's
of
like a
course. Yeah,
good little
definitely.
additional income. Yeah,
Mm. And I think too, having done conventions myself, it's the easiest thing to like to talk about when someone's like, oh, what's this painting, or what's
yeah,
this, and you've kind of done it. You have this personal connection to it as well. Um,
definitely.
and then just for the fact is of I kind of view cons as like a celebration, right? Of this, a lot of different interests, a lot of different pop culture things, and but everyone kind of understands and gets each other
Yes.
in that chaos,
I thought about this actually, about how some people do art as a hobby and they don't like engage in the hobby outside of just doing the hobby itself.
Yeah,
Like they just do art. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like art is such a hard thing that takes so long, takes so much effort, and you don't seek any kind of like a connection or like validation or anything out of it. You just do it. Like that seems so
yeah, right.
crazy to me because like going to a convention is like really, like you said, a way that you can engage with people through your art. Like you actually get real people talking to you in real time about your art. Even when you post online, you don't get that because
Mm,
it's like a comment. It's like a number like through the internet cosmos. Like you don't know who that is. You don't know what they think about it, like you don't have like that kind of connection, but just having like a conversation with one person like can feel so different, you know.
mm, absolutely. And it's also a thing of people that are there as well, that, parents, brothers, sisters, or what are people that aren't even necessarily interested in that, but then they're still exposed to your art or other artists, and just seeing that, and being reminded of that as well. It's like a very, very interesting kind of thing to have.
definitely.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite con that you like to go to? I guess maybe Melbourne Oz Comic Con since that's close to home.
Yeah, I'd say in Melbourne, that's definitely my favorite. That was the first one that I did after the reset, and it was such a good time. I always have a good time at Oz Comic Con. Um, I think outside of that, probably Smash. I did Smash just once. I did it last year, and that was like a whirlwind. That was like so insane. Um, those two probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Are you doing Smash again this year?
Unfortunately not. Believe it or not, I didn't get in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I feel bad. I'm like Squidward now watching like my friends get in.
Oh
So
no.
they're like, oh yeah. They're like organizing print runs right now and I'm just like
You're
sitting at
just
home.
there sitting.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's okay though. I hope they have fun.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of international artists that got into Smash as well this year, like almost 50%, like very
Oh
close to
really?
50%.
I had no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Like a few of my friends were talking about it. I'm not even sure where they got the numbers, but it was like
Mm.
48% or whatever
Oh
like
my
that. So
goodness.
I think
Wow.
they're just trying to very tailor it like a lot more than and be a lot more selective with who they have on it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's cool. So recently you posted that you're part of Artist Master Series Perspective and
Oh,
Depth. How did that come about?
right. I actually have the book right here.
Yeah, please show us. That'd be awesome.
Because it just came actually this week. I think on like Monday or Tuesday or something.
Mm.
But yeah, this is crazy. Like I can't believe it. Like my name is on it.
That's
Like that's
so cool.
ridiculous. Yeah, this is so crazy to think about because like this is like an artist name that I chose like when I was a teenager, and I
Yeah.
I had no idea like it would be on like a book like 10 years later.
You're
You know?
stuck with it now. it's
Yeah, I
it's
know.
on
Like
there.
I'm stuck with it forever. I can't change it anymore.
That's it.
Um,
That's it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that happened because I was posting the educational art content and like people were noticing it. I think specifically maybe because of the Ghibli one. I don't know if you remember that one, but there was one where I talked about the scene from Totoro where the room had like two different vanishing points. Um, and so I talked about that one, and that reel kind of like blew up, and I think it has like 1 million views or something. And yeah, I think I got a email from someone from 3D Total. They were like, "Oh, I think we saw this, and like we were thinking, like if you'd like to write a portion for like one of our books." I was like, "Heck yeah! Like that's amazing, of course." And so I spent like a good like month or so writing like it's like a tutorial for them. It's like a piece where I talked through it from like beginning till end about like the processes and the things I'm thinking about specifically relating to perspective since the book is about perspective. And yeah, that's how it happened. Like it's really really crazy. Like I can't believe that like me deciding to make reels because I had no job like turned into that, you know?
Mm. Very interesting how stuff just kind of happens in life, right? Because there's again, it's that thing about being less focused on the end outcome and more
Yeah.
stuff that you can control, such as creating reels. They've
Yeah.
been very inspiring, very educational as well. And just your little avatar, the way that it's like moving up and down and stuff, it's very accessible as well.
That's so
And it's
funny. Like a funny story about that is that like I decided not on a whim. I've been thinking about it for a while, but that day I was just like, I'm going to make a reel today, no matter what. Like I don't really care like how it looks. Like I'm just gonna try it and just like do it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make a PNG tuber. I made the PNG tuber on the same day that I made my first reel. I sat
oh
there and I
wow,
drew it and I set it all up. I didn't even
yeah,
know how to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but like in my brain, like I devised a plan. I was like, okay,
yep.
uh, you can hook up a PNG tuber through your Discord. I've done it before, and you can have it like show up on your stream. And so I'm going to use that same technique, but instead of like having it on my stream, I'll have it on a green screen. And
Mm.
then I'll record a video through that and record through my microphone. And then I'll take that recording and then I'll key out the green and I'll just plop it on top of like whatever I'm talking about.
Mm,
And
hmm.
I don't think anyone does it like that, but this is the method I came up with on that day and I still use it.
If it works, it works. Honestly, like there's so many different ways to do it, and then but I think too, like especially with content creation in general, and this is something that I'm trying to get better at as well, is how to do more with less. Essentially, like you don't have to have like the most craziest graphics, the most like insane editing style or whatever, if to get the message across. Right at the end of the day, there's still like a through line that can get through to people. And it's
The
just more
funny
about
the funny thing about that is that I deliberately like made my videos in a way that were like lo-fi, in a way that was like really really like unpolished. Instead of screen recording my screen, I made a conscious decision to film it with a phone. Like I would film the screen with my phone and I would like just like move my phone around and like point it at different parts of the screen that I was like showing. And I don't know if that was a good or bad thing, but the videos, reached people. Nowadays, though, I actually do more screen recording because it's actually easier to screen record than it is to try and plan out how I'm going to film my monitor. But I do like that, like you said, the accessible nature of something. Like when it seems like, oh, they're just like me, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. If it's very digestible as well. And it's like, again, a big thing, I think, for social media in general is that word authenticity. When it comes across very like genuine and all that kind of stuff, people tend to resonate more towards that than this kind of artificial, like, there's like it feels separate from
Yeah,
what it
like
is. And it
it's
doesn't,
like commercial or like really prim and proper,
yeah.
um, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
regarding like making content, I'd been thinking about it for a while, but like I've been put off by it for so long because like most of the content that you see around art is kind of like junk food. It's like artists get forced into making content in order to reach more people, but the content that they want to promote is still always their art. So that, the reels and the short form videos that they make, they end up being like all these like junk food kind of things, like hopping on like trends and formats and trending audios and stuff like that. And I have nothing against people who do that, but just personally, I didn't want to do that. It kind of felt like cheesy or corny. Like it's not me, right? If we're talking about authenticity. But I made a very conscious decision. I was like, okay, if I'm going to be making content, I want to make it educational because that's something that I'm actually interested in, and that I do want to share my knowledge with people, um, and I do enjoy, uh, teaching people stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, on the topic of trends, I don't have all my thoughts on this yet, so I'm going to try and articulate it. But it's almost if the trend itself, and I'm speaking like a little bit esoteric here, is a concept. And what everyone thinks that concept is, they'll try and emulate that. And then it just becomes a sea of like generic things that don't really feel true to people, if that makes sense.
Like you're
And that's
trying to
why I
fit
think
yourself into a box.
exactly, yeah. And because of that, there's a lot of the same rhetoric that goes around, but that's because everyone kind of thinks it's what they should be saying rather than the
Mhm.
other way around. So yeah, it's no, that's a good point. I think so with content as well. So you do a lot of reels and you stream. Do you have any other plans to perhaps one day expand out a little bit more, maybe like IRL streams in that kind of nature or
Yeah, I do want to do YouTube. We're on
Hmm.
YouTube right now, but
Hey.
um, yeah, I do want to do YouTube. But the issue is I don't have like the time to do it at the moment. The only reason why I'm kind of able to do the reels is because I did have that 1 to 2 months of like practice time, and I was doing them every day at that time. Now I just do one per week, and so I can kind of, it's not passive, like obviously it takes me time to do it, but it's just kind of something that I can keep up with on a weekly basis, and it doesn't take too much of my time. But if I wanted to do like long form videos or longer form videos, I need a bit more time to sit down and figure out how to do that. And I'm thinking that, when I, don't have a job again, that's probably what I'm going to try doing, is making longer form content for YouTube, also educational. Like, I think there's many ideas that I have for reels that I couldn't make because I couldn't squeeze it into a minute. And most
Yeah.
things actually that I squeeze into a minute can definitely be elaborated on and made into like maybe a 6 or 7 minute video or even longer. So yeah, that's something I want to do. For the streaming thing, I don't think I want to do IRL streams, but I do want to kind of utilize more that the live streaming aspect of live streaming, and to do like more community events. I did this thing last year that was like a study club with my Discord, and I just like rocked up every week, and I had like a list of I had like a Pinterest board of references that people could pick from and do a study along with me during that like 3 to 4 hour stream. Um, and I want to do that again this year, and try and organize it to, really be like a kind of event that people can tune into every week and study along and to
Mm.
learn from. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. The educational aspect of it as well, it's fun to do because you end up yourself learning a lot
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. It's
And
great.
then by being able to like articulate it or teach people, it really like forces you to understand the subject.
Yeah. It's like killing so many birds with one stone. It's like you learn, they learn, you can create like engaging content, you engage an audience, you they learn about you, they learn about your art, um, you learn about what like people are struggling with, that helps you with, making content that can like help more people. Like everything is just like so cyclical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, um, in my journey as well, like the reason I wanted to start YouTube is number one, just to again share knowledge because I feel like in my time, learning art, there's been so many amazing people, amazing mentors, and I feel like I wanted to give part of that back as well. Like I didn't want to just retain all of this and not share it with people, or just go into specifically for me looking at productions and behind the scenes stuff is to really put a highlight on all the people that work on these types of shows and animations or whatever, and kind of bring more of an awareness of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah,
uh,
it's just, yeah, more of an altruistic kind of view, I guess.
yeah, I feel that so much about like giving back, because I didn't have like a formal art education, and I learned pretty much everything I know about like the animation industry through people like myself who were sharing things online for free. Like I watched so many YouTube videos, I read so many articles, I joined like Discord communities. I learned so much from like so many kind people who were, giving their time for people like me at that time. So for me now to be able to give back the way that I do, it's very fulfilling, and it's like a full circle moment, you know?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, absolutely. And on the topic of education as well, like traditionally, you would think that either you become a teacher or you go to work at a university, but there's so many ways of getting that knowledge across, and you're still able to essentially, do all the same things in a different format. And I think that's also a very, very cool way of doing it.
yeah, not to get into like the should you go to art school like debacle, but the great thing about art is that you don't have to go to art school. Like so much of it you can learn through like alternative methods. Like even if it's not necessarily, like I said, through YouTube, like there's lots of different short courses or like online schools that you can go to, or you can read books. Like there's so many good books out there. Honestly, books are like one of the best ways to learn art. Like it's so valuable.
Yeah. Have you read Framed Ink?
I actually haven't read Framed Ink.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
that's really
that's,
funny. Like, I've read like Color and Light by James Gurney, and
yep.
in terms of like background focused books,
Hmm.
I really like Graphic LA by Rob Ruppel,
Yes. Yep.
um,
Yep.
and also uh, what's this one? Hans Barker, Dream Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love Hans Barker as well because he has a like a blog or a blog spot, and I don't think he
Yeah.
runs it anymore, but he also has an Instagram. That thing is
Yeah.
a treasure trove. That is like
Definitely.
so amazing. He's so
I think
knowledgeable.
he wrote Vision as well.
Yeah, Vision's the newer one. Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't I
that
haven't read that one yet.
that I'm sort of like at the beginning still, but it's he has such a way of communicating his ideas across and in such a easily understandable. The same thing as Framed Ink too, when they strip back so much of the complexities of like composition, lighting, and all those different things, and you can see it for what it is. It's like such a big, game changer essentially when it comes to learning these things.
Yeah,
But yeah, I definitely recommend Framed Ink. I think you'll like it a lot. Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's a
I don't know why I never like read it. I'm not sure actually. I think I thought that like I already knew how to do it or something like that. I don't know. You get that right? Like
to
when
be
you're like a
fair, you are in Artist Master Series perspective and depth.
no, no, no,
So
no. I'm not talking about right now. I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about back then. It's like I thought I was
okay.
too good for it. I thought it's like, oh, it's a beginner book. I don't need to look at this. But the funny thing is, that as you get better, like it's not that the fundamentals become more important, but it's that you realize that how important they are. And it's kind of funny. It's like as you improve as an artist, like these simple things become more and more important, and like you struggle with them more and more.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Absolutely. It's the thing of like, mastering realistic or realism or whatever only to return back to a simple style. And that ironically is harder because you're making more decisions about what to keep, what to, discard, all of these different things. Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect before?
Yes, yes. That's
Yeah,
basically what it is.
yeah, exactly, similar kind of thing where it's yeah, the more you know about something, the less you feel capable because the
Yeah,
more you
because you know more. You know that it's the topic or the subject. It's so vast. It's more vast than you ever even thought it was. You know?
exactly. Yeah. We met unofficially last year in like November in Brisbane Supernova. You weren't actually there, so I remember seeing that you had a stall there, and someone that I knew was saying like, "Oh, go check out Orenji's art and all this kind of stuff." So I went by, and your partner was there, and then I don't know how it came by, but we somehow got on like a video call together,
Yeah.
and then you were like, "Oh, you do like YouTube,"
Yeah, yeah. I'd
and we were
seen I'd
just
seen your stuff before. Like I think the video I watched was like the oversaturation of like the Spider Verse style one, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, Spider Verse's style become oversaturated.
yeah. That was
Yeah,
the one I remember. But yeah, that was pretty funny. To meet that way, like completely unexpected. It's kind of funny. Like you watch people through like a screen, and you just kind of, as an observer, you never expect to like cross paths with these people.
right.
You know?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. Or like, oh yeah, you live in Australia as well. That's weird. Like, it's like a
Yeah, it's
yeah,
so funny when like when you meet people like who are Australian, because the internet just makes everything seem American.
yeah, totally, yeah, for sure. And then
Yeah,
you just realize like, oh, like we actually have a lot in common. Like there's even very very small Australian things day to day, and all
yeah,
that like references you would get. So it's very
yeah,
very
and
funny.
there's
And
actually
then
so many amazing like Australian artists and creators and stuff, and
absolutely, yeah, it makes me
they're all
proud.
right
Like
here.
they're all here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then this year for Melbourne Oz Comic Con, we like actually officially met
yes,
and got
yes,
to say hi and have like an art trade and stuff, which is very cool.
yes, yes. I don't know where your stuff is. I had it somewhere. I haven't put
Oh,
up any of my stuff. Like I buy like so much art and do trades with people, and I just have like a stack of prints that I just
I
like,
know,
yeah.
I
But
know.
I
Like,
buy frames from op shops. So I have like a
mm,
collection of frames, and I just need to take some time to like go through them and pair up
put it all
the
up and stuff.
artworks with
Yeah,
the frames. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's cool. Like when another thing too is when you really kind of embody it art, meaning like your environment around you starts to change. You put up things that like literally your background with all of the different art books, and it's sort of surrounding you. As you said earlier as well, there are some people that just do it as a hobby, pick up a pencil and draw, and then that's it. But they don't sort
Yeah.
of have that other extra, and that's totally fine as well. Not saying you have to, but there is a different level of. I feel like for me, I become more in tune with myself when my
Mm.
environment kind of reflects that.
Yeah, definitely. It's I don't know how to like articulate this, but um like things that you like kind of vibe with, you know? Because like
Mm.
growing up, like you don't get to choose even what clothes you wear when you're a kid because your
Yeah.
mom buys them for you. But you know, when you start being able to choose those things, the everything like is your choice based on your personality. And
Yeah.
like all these things, like my mom would have never bought this for me
Oh.
when I was a kid. I bought all these with my own money, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so these are all very much things that I love, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, even like for me, like with this jacket here, right? This is something like
That's your look. This
thank you.
is like the way that you look in my brain.
Oh, really? With like a
Yeah,
patchwork.
is this shirt. I saw you come on with the shirt. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's what you wear all the time."
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no, it's more about accepting that as well because before like we talked about this briefly, but in 2020 when my I had my big art style change and then really kind of put the expectation out of my mind and like I'm creating art for myself, right? Which sort of like led to a lot of the lo-fi pieces that I did, and then that kind of internalized it and it changed me because again
Mm,
outwardly all of a sudden I was like just embracing everything, which led to the change in wardrobe and
yeah.
glasses and all that kind of stuff and style and whatever. But it feels a lot more like everything flows. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how big you are in sort of like the universe. I don't want to get too hokey or anything, but everything kind
I
of
don't
flows.
I'm not like necessarily into that kind of thing, but I watch Dr. K, Healthy Gamer GG,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's like into like spiritualism and stuff, but from a like a scientific perspective as well. And
Yeah,
like
he's a good balance.
I kind of I don't know if I like believe in like whatever thing, but I do believe in like yourself. Like the feelings that I have about things, they're real. Like they're not like random things that are made up. Like the way I feel about things is the way that I feel about things. And like definitely kind of growing into myself, like going from someone who is told what to do into someone who like controls everything around me, really kind of changed my life. I guess to go back to like doing art again after I went to architecture school, like that was, you know, looking back on it now and like you know, a person looking at me from the outside would probably be like, oh, like he was going to do art all along. Like you look at the art that he did in high school, like he was already so good. Oh, he went to architecture school and now he's like working in animation. That's not so crazy. But like for me, like literally, I had no clue what I was doing. Like I took that year off because I didn't know. Like I didn't know if I wanted to do architecture and I didn't know what was out there. Like the idea of working in animation was not a thing until 5 years ago. Um, and from finding out about it and from working in the industry was only 8 months for me. Like I found out about it, and then 8 months later, I was working in it. And thinking back, it's like I have to go back and like pat myself on the back, like that the me of 5 years ago had no idea what he was doing, but like he put me on the path that that I'm on now, you know, and yeah, like like I just think about like the me of like 5 years ago as like a different person, you know, and making that choice at that time as that person that I was, like must have taken. I'm like talking about myself as like a third person right now, but like it's like that person is so different to me now. Like it would have taken an incredible amount of courage to like take that step, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Past you has your back. Future you,
Yeah. Yeah,
you know.
exactly. I have to thank myself from 5 years ago, man. That's like one of the craziest decisions. Like what I do now, and the decisions I make now, they're easy because like I know who I am now. But like making that decision back then before I fully figured it out, that was like pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And one final thing I want to add to that as well. That's a very like macro view of the whole process, and I think that can be applied specifically to creating art when you have all of these different fundamentals, all these different things kind of telling you what to do, but then you make the decision and have that confidence to stick with that decision. That's really the thing that becomes. That's really the thing that becomes the art style that I want to
Yes.
tell people all the time. It's like at the end of the day, it's really up to you, like how you want to express, how you want to do things. There's always going to be critique going around, so don't even worry about trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
But more of like a just a self belief, a self confidence, you know.
Yes. Yes. That is huge. That is like a huge thing about like developing and growing as an artist is like being sure of your own tastes. Um, because like back then when I made things, they were all derivative. Everything was derivative of something, and very heavily derivative. It's like if I was watching Naruto, I'd be drawing ninjas and like throwing stars and stuff, like for sure. um and now it's like, well, I know where my inspirations come from, but I also know like personally what I want to make.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and you can draw on different inspirations, but they don't drive you. Like, you decide what to take.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big melting pot, and then like I think that's why art is special as well. When someone puts it out, it's really such a unique piece of all of their life experiences, all of the things that they like. I can't tell you how many times I've drawn Boba Fett, but now I'm like really into sci-fi robots and stuff, But it stemmed from that love, that desire, So yeah, awesome. Cool. Okay, so should we sign off or like normally I just like fade the video out and then I do like a little outro or something, but is there anything
Mm.
that you'd like to, give a shout out to like maybe like your Insta or anything like that?
Shout out to the book. um Artist Master Series: Perspective and Depth from 3D Total. It also features Mike Hernandez, Devenel Kurtz, Nathan Fowkes, Guace, and myself. Very, like, having this in my hands and like being able to flip through it. Like, I'm honestly, once again, like, this is something I did like over a year ago now. And looking back at it, I'm like, damn, I did a good job back then. you know, like you could, it's so funny to look back on stuff that you did, because like you're so far removed from it that like you don't even remember what you did, and you're
Yeah.
like, wow, how did I do that? Like,
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
cool. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to that, I guess. And I'm also working on an art book at the moment, like a personal self-published art book project. And maybe you can look out for it in December, maybe. Plan on doing
Oh,
a Kickstarter. So,
awesome.
follow the socials to stay updated. And I've
Mm,
been working on it on the Twitch stream as well. So tune into that if you want to see what I'm up to. But yeah, that's about it.
awesome. Cool. Everybody go check all the amazing stuff Orenji's been doing. Very excited to see your progress as well, and then the other stuff that you get up to, and more ducks in the future of your art. Let's please have more ducks. Can never have
Yeah,
too
for
many.
sure. Definitely. Oh, you can kind of have too many. We're done at 6
6.
for
You
now.
can only have 6. All right, and thank you once again to Orenji for joining me for tonight's interview. If you'd like to see more from him, I've popped a link in the description with all of his socials. Until next time, everyone, take care and stay safe.